I have a want to say that this video is for new projectors, people new to human design who recently found out that they're part of the projector type. But the reason that I'm feeling called to make this video is because I have a lot of projectors that take my classes. I have a lot of projectors that work with me, but in particular what I've noticed recently is that even projectors who have been in human design for years sometimes, they don't feel like projectors. Now, if you've just figured out you're a projector, there are plenty of resources. There is going to be a lot of material that you can get from raw, source-based material. And I'll be honest, taking in raw's material is the most empowering material I've ever taken in. It makes me feel really good about being the projector type. But I have to acknowledge that raw wasn't a projector. And so when I came into human design, the information that I got about what a projector is, it was informative, it was educational, it was interesting. I learned later down the road that some of it was a bunch of garbage. You know, it's what I call pop HD, and there's a video on that one coming shortly. But years into this, with the amount of projector clients that I've had, one of the things that I'm recognizing is that there aren't that many people who actually feel like projectors. They don't truly have this embodied power that comes with being a recognized and successful projector. They mostly have hopes, dreams, and ideas about what it could feel like when they get there. I recently taught a class on motivation, which, while it is a more advanced topic, it's crucial for waking up a projector. Now, when you teach about motivation, one of the main things that I wanted people to learn was how to identify different aspects of their not self, aspects we call distraction, transference, ways that your life and your reality start to feel very confusing, very distorted. And I think that even without knowing exactly what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. There are a lot of us who have gone through the majority of our life feeling confused, wrong, like we're going the wrong way, like we don't know who we are. And while the core philosophies, tenets, principles, the core things, the core aspects of human design that we teach over and over and over again, strategy and authority, it truly shocks me how few people are able to live according to strategy and authority because they're not able to recognize what that is supposed to feel like. A lot of the times, human design is very mechanical, and I prefer when it's mechanical because I like taking a lot of the feelings out of it. I think that the education needs to come first, and through playing and experimenting with the education, you learn how things feel. You're able to recognize what the different feelings are. I really care that people actually get some level of support out of this. I love taking projectors into deeper topics like color, but it's not going to help you if you don't know what it feels like to be recognized and invited. If you don't really get honest about your signature, success, and your not self theme of bitterness. I am not here for, these very basic synopsis of surface information And I'm certainly not here for the distorted things that projectors get called by other people. People who have changed aspects of the human design system so that they're not actual human design anymore. When people are changing the names of the types, of the signatures, don't come up with new names for these. There are real reasons why we have keynotes, and they are so powerful. And every time the keynotes are changed, we lose power. It diminishes from our potential. There are core words here: recognized, invited, successful, bitter. They're very important. They have feeling to them. They have tactile. They have a weight. There's something you can grab there. The projector standard is going to have a lot to do with this. Standards for recognition, standards for being seen, standards for invitations, standards for success, and some real fucking honesty about when you don't feel those things and the fact that you're bitter about it. And that's enough to change. That's enough to change what's going on. What your boundaries are, what your standards are, how you engage with other people. This is serious. I'm serious today. Projectors are serious people. We're a serious type. Let's talk about why. Let's talk about the strategy. Recognition, invitation. This goes so far beyond someone looking at you, someone paying attention to you, and someone asking you a question or asking you to do something. If that's all you require to engage with the other, it's going to be a long time before you really experience your signature. Let's talk about how terrible it feels to go somewhere where you're not recognized and invited. Now, I want to keep this video relatively basic. But know that mechanically, recognition is for your definition. And your definition are your channels and the centers they're connected to. What channels do you have? And what is that channel trying to guide the other with? That is where your recognition comes from. When I am recognized as a projector, it is for my channel of surrender. That is my projected channel. I only have one. I get recognized and invited to guide by transmitting. It's a tribal channel. Because it's tribal, it offers support. If you want to know what your channel provides to the other in terms of circuitry, there's another video you can go watch. Go find out what your channel is in for circuitry, and then watch the video and see what your circuitry is here to guide the other with. Is it support? Is it empowerment? Or is it sharing? After you've been recognized, hey, so-and-so, I need this from you. I need this awareness from you. I need this guidance from you. You know, a lot of the time guidance is reduced into something like giving advice. And the more that we reduce our true keynotes, the more that other people think that they belong to them. It is wild to me how many generator coaches comment on my content saying that they guide. Now, I don't correct them because I don't respond, I don't have time to, and it's not an invitation. That's important. Just because I see something that I know to be false, it doesn't mean I engage with it. It's not up to me to make everybody know the right material. But when we consistently downgrade these words by replacing them with other words that we maybe perhaps find more relatable or more palatable, they quickly get distorted. Guiding doesn't mean giving advice. Guiding as a projector means that my aura type has the ability to grab the other person's magnetic monopole inside their G center. I grab them. It's like plugging a computer into something and transferring data. That's what's happening. It's not my opinion. It's not my wisdom. It's not my perspective. It's my ability to grab someone at their core, lock onto them, and know a lot of stuff about them very quickly. Generators don't have the aura capability to grab someone else's monopole. Manifestors don't have that ability. Reflectors don't have that ability. Projectors do. That's why we're here. Our type exists since 1781. You know, you might see that as the baby aura type on the planet. We're certainly the youngest aura type. But that has nothing to do with, you know, our position in a perceived hierarchy. We're not at a bottom. There's not really a bottom. Hierarchy really truly belongs to the seven-centered strategic way that ended in 1781. We don't need to compare that way. We just need to be honest about what each type does and doesn't do so that we can all play our role. You don't get your signature unless you're in your role. So when you get recognized and invited, what that means is somebody has the ability to see you, know that you are the right guide for them, and the invitation is the formal request for you to guide them. When I said we can grab that monopole, we are a penetrative aura. We are wildly uncomfortable for other people to experience when they're not asking for us. The concept of consent is really important here. You know, projectors are, especially as kids, we are often wildly overlooked, and it creates this negative self-perspective that we're not valuable, that we don't have guidance to give, that we're not able to fulfill our role, and we end up settling for things that are not even close to real recognition and invitation. We have a tendency to start with incredibly low standards for engagement. One of the biggest hurdles being a projector is getting yourself to the point of self-recognition, self-awareness, self-respect, where you don't engage with people who aren't actually recognizing and inviting you. The invitation is formal recognition, and what it comes with is compensation. Money. It's not always going to be money, but it is going to be a resource that represents energy, because we're non-energy types. What that really means is we don't have a defined sacral center. We are not a generator type. We do not generate life force energy. We have to be compensated in exchange for energy, because we have to go out and pay for other types' energy. You know, most people hear recognized and invited and they're like, cool. You know, they kind of like, all right, sounds simple enough, but they don't really know the intensity of what that means. And I guarantee you, 99.99% of projectors have no idea how good their life can feel, because they have been accepting not real recognition. They haven't been getting real invitations, which means they're not getting real compensation. Most projectors on the planet are trying too hard, they're overworked, they're bitter, they're poor, they're extremely fatigued, they're exhausted, they have autoimmune conditions. If that sounds more like the life you've been living, we can do better. I want you to know what it feels like to get something that's worth you engaging in. You know, strategy is seen as the way things come to us, the way things engage with us. But just because something comes through strategy, just because you have been recognized, invited, really ultimately given permission to guide and offered compensation, that's just the first step. After that, you have the ability to accept or decline. Just because you've been offered doesn't mean you have to accept. In fact, a lot of the time you're going to decline. How do you know if you're going to accept or decline somebody's invitation? That's where authority kicks in. So what's your authority? Let's go over a couple basic types of projectors, because there are more types of projectors, more variations, more subtypes to the projector than any other type. We have mental projectors. They have the option of having either the defined head, defined ajna, or defined throat, but it will only be channels from the throat upward. There will be no channels from the throat downward into the rest of the body graph. These are a projector where the environment is incredibly important to them and the ability to soundboard is incredibly important to them. We have a longer processing authority. This is not somebody who should expect to be like yes or no immediately upon being asked for something. I want them to take time. I want them to feel out the space. I want them to feel out the people in that space. I want them to talk, soundboard with people around them, but it doesn't mean talk to them for their opinion or their advice on what they think you should do. A quality soundboard is going to act a lot like a wall that you're going to talk at, and they're going to reverberate things back to you that affirm what you're already saying. If you're soundboarding and you say, I don't know if this feels good for me, your soundboard's job is to go, what I'm hearing you say is you don't know if that sounds good enough for you. We are just holding space. That's what a soundboard is. You know, the problem though with a lot of mental definition is that pre-1781, getting fired up, pre-1781, we were seven-centered and we were strategic, we were very left. That means that there was a heavy emphasis on the ability to mentally rationalize. It was the age of information, the age of questioning, the age of reasoning. But that's not what we're in anymore. We're nine-centered. We have rightness. We have emotional awareness. There has never been anybody whose authority is the ajna, whose authority is mental definition. The authority for a mental projector requires a few different elements for there to come to their clear awareness. If you're a projector who has channels between the throat and the G center, you're going to be self-projected. If you have these channels, but there's no defined spleen and no defined solar plexus, then we know that you're a self-projected projector. Self-projecting. Now when we say self, the acknowledgement is that we have definition in the G center and we have channels going up to the throat. There may be mental definition as well, but as soon as that G center is defined, we move into the authority of self-projected. This is the core of soundboarding. If you are a self-projected projector, your authority requires you to have quality soundboards in your life in order for you to reach the clarity on your decisions. If you have the spleen defined in the body graph, but not the solar plexus, you're going to be a splenic projector. Splenic projector is one of the fastest deciding types. Now, again, to distorted versions of keynotes, I see a lot of popular human design creators saying things like the splenic authority means follow your instincts. Most people, when they get to human design, if you tell them to follow their instincts, I guarantee you they don't really know the difference between that and a lot of not self other crap that's already running their life. Instincts is not accurate enough. If you go to one of the core source material books in human design, what you will learn, there's the black book and the white book. They're probably the two, oh God, I love them, two amazing source-based materials in human design from 1991 and 1994, maybe 1993. But either way, this is original material. The first name for the spleen was not the splenic center. It was the cleansing center. As much as we don't call it the cleansing center anymore, what I need you to understand about that is that it says clean, the cleansing center, clean. Now, the spleen is attached to the lymphatic system. All centers govern different organs and aspects of the body. The spleen is so intrinsically tied to the immune system and the lymphatic system. The core of splenic authority is this healthy? Is this healthy for me right now? Because the spleen is an awareness center. It's the original awareness center, survival in the now. Is this healthy for me right now? That goes beyond follow your instincts. And it requires a high level of discernment. And I'll be honest, most spleens are not clean. They take time to clean up. Most spleens that get into human design are messy and unhealthy, unregulated. One of the saddest clues to me that someone is an unhealthy splenic projector is that they're puffy. Everything about them looks blah and bloated. You can tell their skin is lackluster. These are people who need to do lymphatic massage, gua sha massage, drink way more water, knock out a lot of the addictive stuff, knock out a lot of the coping mechanisms. Because when your spleen is clean, it gets a lot easier to make better decisions a lot faster. And when I say better, I mean healthier. I mean good enough for you. I mean life-sustaining. I mean life-giving. You start to look vibrant instead of incredibly dull. If you are an emotional projector, you have the solar plexus defined. You know, it's incredibly easy to look at your body graph as a projector. If the solar plexus is defined, it's the first place you look. Okay, you'd be an emotional projector. Without that one, the next one, if the spleen's defined, you're a splenic projector. The next one, you're going to look at the G-center. Oh, I'm a self-projected projector. Now, if you don't have any of those three, you're a mental projector. There's one last kind, and it's an ego projector. Now, the ego projector is incredibly rare. They're not going to have a spleen. They're not going to have a solar plexus. Very rare. They're channel of initiation projectors. They might have self-projected and mental above that, but the core is that the spleen and the solar plexus are both undefined. If you're an ego projector, your will is incredibly important. What you have the will for or don't have the will for is your deciding factor. Do I have the will for this? You know, if you're not sure about whether or not you have the will for something, pay attention to the words that you use, because I bet you use the phrase, I'll do that, or I won't do that. I'll do that is a very shortened abbreviation of I will. And if you're saying I will, there's a good chance you have the will for it. And if you're saying I don't want to, there's a good chance what you really mean is I won't. And if you mean I won't, what you mean is you don't have the will. Pay attention to how you talk about yourself and what you have the energy and ability to do. The ego is a very powerful motor. It will or won't give you energy. And you have to respect what that's saying. Because if you don't, you are truly headed for stomach problems and probably a heart attack. Okay, emotional projectors. If you have the solar plexus defined, you're an emotional projector. This is, in theory, I think, the most tricky type of projector in terms of the confidence and clarity in using your authority. Because what we're working with here is the newest awareness center, which is awareness in a wave. This is not something that knows immediately whether or not it's going to accept or do something. When you recognize and invite an emotional projector to be your guide, don't expect, one, a response, and don't expect it quickly. They will let you know eventually when they've reached clarity and what is required to reach clarity. Data. How do you collect data? Awareness in a wave. As the mood fluctuates for an emotional projector, we gain data based on the wave, based on the point in the wave. Low, high, low, high. They're not all smooth like that. This is a gross reduction of what the emotional wave feels like. But when you invite an emotional projector, they need to go through a process. They need to think about whether they want to guide you in a low and whether they want to guide you in a high. What are you like to deal with for them when they're in a low, and what are you like for them to deal with when they're in a high? There is much more information, there is much more awareness that is going into the acceptance of this invitation or not. If you're an emotional projector, you need to have some of the highest standards of engagement for people, because you can't just bring anybody in. If you bring people in too quickly, what's going to happen is when you try and guide that person, when you mentally try and make yourself guide that person, your solar plexus is going to do something to stop you. If you're an emotional projector, then I know that you already understand what I'm about to say. If you consistently feel like you're agreeing to things and then trying to find a way out of them later, that's a sign that you're not respecting your authority enough. It's time to up those standards. One of the reasons why it is so hard for projectors to get to the point that is possible for them, to get to the level of success that is waiting for them, is because we truly have so few role models. 1781 and forward is not a lot of time in history for us to have good role models to follow, good examples of what it is to be a true self-projector. True self-projectors are intimidating as fuck. They're borderline scary because they are strong in who they are. They're not afraid to get to the core of somebody else because they don't do it unless they have been recognized and invited. And that means that they have been compensated and given access. And they're serious about their role. They're serious about their responsibility. These aren't projectors that are beating around the bush with half-baked advice. These are projectors that can change your life in an interaction. We don't even understand how to quantify the value of that. It has truly shocked me over so many classes of having groups of projectors with me and having them ask me questions about, whether this was really like a go-ahead from their authority, or whether this was really a quality invitation, or, whether they're really in their motivation when they're whatever. And honestly, it's not the questions that shocks me. It's the level of self-doubt behind it all. And I'm not talking about, Theogony always trying to be certain and nobody's supposed to try and be certain, so we're all supposed to have a little bit of doubt. That's one center, that's one specific type of awareness. And unfortunately, when we have certain words like certainty and doubt, they tend to get locked into an aspect of the body graph and overlooked in other ways. I want to talk about true self-confidence. Most projectors don't have any. They certainly don't have enough. They don't know their value. They consistently accept invitations that are beneath them with very little recognition and next to no compensation, and they are consistently struggling in their life, and they think that it's normal. They think that it's supposed to be that way, and they think they're supposed to work harder to get out of it. If you think that you have to work harder as a projector to get your level of success, then you're playing the generator game. We're not here to work. We don't have generative energy. We don't have life force energy. We're here to guide. And how do you guide? You got to know a system. Now here's the kicker. You already do. You can't not know a system as a projector. Our type is so systems-based. We're so intellectual, academic, curious. We want to know how things work. Because when we understand how things work, the immediate things that we start to see are the elements in there that still aren't working. Why things are taking too much energy. Why things aren't efficient. The projector exists basically as a plug-in for the generator type because they're not efficient with their energy. If generators were efficient with their energy, we wouldn't have most of the problems that we have on the planet. This is not an efficient planet. So here we are. We're here. We're here to make it better. We're here to make it easier. We're here to make everybody experience less resistance. But it's not our responsibility to go to work for the planet to try and get rid of resistance. It's our job to be studied, to be incredibly aware, and to reserve that awareness for people who have the ability to see us, recognize us, and invite us into guiding them with that awareness. If you're not currently being recognized and invited, you don't really have a job to do. That's kind of scary for a lot of projectors. We're used to having jobs. You know, we're part of the herd that get asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do when you grow up? You know, if you're still thinking as a projector about when you're going to retire, when you get to retire, you're not looking at it right. I'm never going to retire. I don't work a not self-labor-intensive job that bores the shit out of me, dulls my ability, and is killing me slowly. There is no retirement time for me in the future. What does retirement represent? You know, the point in time where you've worked enough that you can now finally enjoy the life that you want to live with the years you got left? You know, a projector life feels a lot like retirement. This is my job. Sometimes there's a person in front of me instead of a camera. Sometimes there's a group of people in front of me instead of a camera. I don't have to quit this. I'm not going to age out of this. I'm only going to get better at giving guidance throughout my life. I'm going to be more valuable the older I get, as long as I maintain my awareness, my study, my self-respect, my standards. I truly expect to be guiding until I die. And I like the sound of that. I know there's a phrase that sometimes, you know, parents say to kids when kids feel wrong or bad for doing something. You know, even my son before has said, like, I'm bad. I've heard him say that when I think he's made not a very good choice. And I will say to him, you know, you're not bad. You just made a bad choice. A lot of projectors carry this sense of being wrong. Wrong for being, wrong for existing, wrong for, as in nobody thinks that they're right. You know, because if people thought they were right, they would be inviting them and recognizing them more. And if you're not being invited and recognized, you don't feel right, you feel pretty wrong. Now what I need them to realize is they're not wrong, they're not damaged, they're not broken. They're likely making some wrong judgment calls. They're likely hanging out in some wrong groups. They're likely putting themselves in some wrong circumstance. Most of what needs to change isn't you. It's everything you're engaging with that's around you. A lot of projectors are going to have to go through a very honest time of recognizing, I want my relationships to feel better. And it can. They can. I want my work to feel better. And it can. I want my home to feel better. It can. I want my body to feel better. It can. A lot of projectors are afraid to let go of what they have because they don't think they're going to get something better to replace it. And that's exactly what is going to keep them bitter and small and unrecognized and unwilling to provide for themselves. There's a level of bravery that comes with self-respect, self-awareness. You have to hold yourself at a certain level of going, I'm not accepting anything less than that. I don't deserve to accept anything less than that. And when that's the frequency you start to bring out, I promise, things are going to change for you faster than you know.